Welcome to BKCPL 1, the Kevin OU recap. This is Kevin OU. When BKC gets to be dictator, this is the black and white OU that is left behind after the bombshells go off. Unfortunately, or maybe in an act of karma, Gladios died in the bombing. The resident Draco bomber is gone. Scald was also eliminated. Polytoad forgot how to make it rain. It needs to take lessons from Goldingo. Tornadus Therian remerged from underground to spread its wings and fly once more. Reuniquelus just ceased to exist. And more Keldeo just decided to leave. It became the prodigal Keldeo and left for Oras. So, this is a little bit different of a recap. A little bit different or replay commentary because we're not starting at the beginning. I want to get through all 4 Kevin OU games in a relatively short time. So we'll be starting with this one, Alpheus versus Ruby Candy on turn 20. There's been a bit of positioning back and forth with the Gastrodon and Rotom having a dynamic of the Rotom kind of stuffs most everything that Ruby Candy wants to do, but the Gastrodon completely stuffs the Rotom, but has managed to avoid being burned until very shortly. Now, this Rotom has been chipped a little from a Tornadus crit Hurricane, and the Roserade was damaged slightly by a surprise Gastrodon Ice Beam, which prevents it from completely taking advantage of the Gastrodon. We do now have Starmie on Magnezone after Starmie has spun away a Spike. It is going to switch out, find the Lando, and meet the Gastrodon. Assuredly, Lando will U-turn here, and Ruby Candy has a free Ice Beam, and Alpheus gives away their Roserade. This is the first kill of the game because of Sand. Note that the Gastrodon is not running Scald because there is no Scald. Dragonite, of course, with multi-scale would survive the Ice Beam. So Scarm comes in, takes a superpower. It's not a particularly strong one, but the Dragonite's multiscale is broken by the Sand. The Tran comes into the Hippo, and Mii returns. Mii looks rather scary, seeing as how low the Gastrodon is. Gastrodon, like the Roserade on Gastrodon play, was assuming the Gastrodon would recover after Lando U-turns on it, which put this scenario where the Gastrodon is able to be killed. So Alpheus essentially traded the Roserade for damage on the Gastrodon to stick, and now the Gastrodon dies, which means the main bulky water dynamic is completely shifted, with Rotom Wash stuffing Ruby Candy's team, but there's no Gastrodon to stuff the Rotom Wash. But where there's a Hurricane, there's a way. This Rotom's rather low, and it's taking even more chip. But it goes for a Pain Split and heals up a little bit. This Magnezone also looks rather irritating. It is very, I don't know why it would be anything other than HP Fire. And Lando gets up Rocks. They've traded Rocks, but Exca probably is removal. But the Starmie has been more effective at cleaning the field and is a veritable offensive threat to Ruby Candy. No Rocky Helmet punish, because there is no helmet on the Scarm. Surf does a rather decent chunk, but not gonna outdo Roost. Now the Tran is just gonna enter in because what switches into Magma Storm? Or Lava Plume? Nothing. Hippo comes in, and since it's a Lava Plume, it's probably a defensive Tran, which would not kill the Spadef Hippo. Probably Spadef. I don't know my black and white calcs. The Mii has Recover here, so these Earthquakes aren't really doing all too much, but a crit could be big. Or at some point, Alpheus could choose to Surf, as they did right there. Now Skarm's in range. So it could be, so you recover on a predicted Torn, but Ruby Candy calls them out and roosts their Skarm. Now the Tran gets in for free and spikes are laid, and Lava Plume is going to do a lot to Torn. Taunt, Hurricane, U-Turn, +1, probably not Heat Wave, considering there's a Magna Zone. Could be Focus Blast. But of course, Focus Blast won't kill us, but Def Tran. Lando in on Exca eats the EQ, and Ruby Candy is falling apart as soon as Gastrodon Ice Beam instead of recovering and opened itself up to take too much damage and die. This game was essentially over, and Afoyas will finish it out in short fashion. He trends faster than the Extra, as shown by Leftovers, and it's just over. Next on, this is Easy Chamber, Loza, whatever, versus Joya. This game so far, we've seen a Breloom overpredict against a Hippowdon for, 3 turns in a row, and never Seed Bomb it. It subbed and it Focus Punch, but it got, essentially, AZ was able to get hazards up, and in return for minimal chip on their Mons, and a little bit of damage on their Lottie, who has revealed Hidden Power, Fire, and Surf to get a decent amount of chip on the Breloom. The Breloom set is fully revealed, and Ferrothorn is missing a crucial Power Whip that would have killed the Slowbro with Sand. Slowbro now gets to slack off, and a Leech Seed is laid. This is a Leech Seed Pharaoh, which is nice to see. And nothing really wants to deal with the Slowbro other than the Pharaoh. So we're going to see how this turns out. It is slowly swinging in the Ferrothorn's favor, as Leech Seed plus Power Whip is out damaging Slack Off. If there's an Ice Beam here, you might just have to go for it, or you just switch. I think you just switch. A significant amount of Power Whips have been burned, and that's another one that goes. So there's 8 Power Whips and 9 Slack Offs. Also know that Slowbro can regenerate health. Lando predicting Torn to U-turn out maybe, or just predicting a double to whatever. Like, EQ is not the most spammable thing against AZ's team. Maybe it was a Scarf Lando, but the Life Orb Tornadus using Regenerator to heal off all that life. Oh, there's the Rock Slide Hippo Acute Tech and Tornadus meta. But yeah, that Lando kind of got nothing done for it. The more Power Whips being burned, this Slowbro could potentially become a threat. Leech Seed miss isn't too relevant, but it is relevant hitting here. It means this Excadrill is not very safe to... yeah, it's gonna die here. And now, once spikes are laid, they will be permanent. Now, the Zapdos is the interesting mon of this game. We had an interesting mon on Roserade last time. This time we have Zapdos. Hurricane... Oh, no, just HP Ice. Wait, does Zapdos get Hurricane Gen? I don't think it does. So HP Ice is reasonable here, but the Spadef Hippo is just too insane. So, last bit was Thunderbolt. Not GSE, so no Thunders. Hippo on Hippo, this could be very boring. No, it's Hippo on Pharaoh, which is also unfun. The Breloom comes in. This thing is rather scary. It can just sub or protect. So, wait, it can't sub because of Gyro Ball, but it can try and sub protect out the Gyro Balls, which is what it is going to try and do until it overpredicts again. This has been the story of this Breloom. All it's done is overpredict. You just protect there, and you get yourself some health back, and they're shortly running out of Gyro Balls. So now Zapdos comes in, has HP Ice on the switch, get a burn here, doesn't, and Joya is falling apart. As you can see, the Slowbro dies to the EQ, and this is essentially over because... And Rotom watches where, yeah, Wisp the Zapdos, you can Wisp the Hippo, Alakazam, it just exists to click Psychic a couple times, or Psyshock. In this instance, Psyshock is probably better because I believe it is Spadef Hippo, because it's got Rock Slide for Tornadus T. Sam had a broken sash, of course. Rotom comes in, just can click a Hydro, or just Wisp. No, it's just gonna Hydro. Rock Slide, it's over. So, the next one is featuring a Pokemon I very much enjoy, Mienshao. This, up until now, we've seen, if I recall, yeah, Magma Storm Heatran go kind of nutty into a Scarf Rotom. And now it is facing off a Ferrothorn. Tyranitar comes in to absorb the Magma Storm. I'm starting off each of notice that this is not a notice. So first off, notice this is not a lefties tar. Also, I am choosing these points to start out. It's each replay because these are the main. This is where progress begins, or the first major turn takes place. And Ice Beam on the Lando is a very major turn. A lot of progress is made by Rezo by getting that Ice Beam call out. But it's a Scarf Lando, which U-turns on the Pursuit Tar, because of course it does. If it EQ'd, the Tar dies. But Rezo able to call him out. Focus Blast, yep, Issa Choppleberry lives. Does it have a rock move? No, but Ice Beam does a chunk. Probably going to U-turn out here and get a lot of regenerator. That Tar got mileage. And the Wash comes in. This Wash Tum isn't scarfed. It's not going to burn the Pharaoh. It's going to Volt Switch out into Heatran. Makes sense. Heatran is scary. Misses Magma Storm on the Ferrothorn. Gets knocked off. That Pharaoh sack was likely to get in Gyara or Exca or whatever. It's whatever. Like, EQ Ironhead goes nuts here. Except for Rotom. Gyara doesn't like Rotom. This is a Rotom beatdown is what it looks like. Every single Mon here is walled by Rotom. But Rotom famously does not have the best recovery because Pain Split bad. Does not get the correct call with Earthquakes, but does not shoot off a Heat Wave. Iron Head into Heatran though. Heatran probably slower. Torn is getting a second shot at making that call out. Does Heat Wave, does a ton to the opposing Tornadus. It dies to sand. Scarf Extra, maybe. Respecting that possibility, Rezo goes to Gyara. Not Intimidate, mind you. To spin, Waterfalls into the Rotom. This Rotom beatdown team has not beaten down the Rotom yet. Wisp on your Rotom. Its Trick Scarf is the presumption when it has no lefty. Is it going to trick its Scarf? No, it's going to Volt Switch into Excadrill, which is brutal. It doesn't lock into EQ here, likely. Yes, it just goes for a switch. Mienshao also is terrifying, presuming it has a rock move. High Jump Kip drops the Excadrill. Tornado comes in to scare out the Mienshao. Exca takes a chunk from that Hurricane. These Life Orb Hurricanes are insane, and all of them are hitting. Exca protects. Rotom gets no more shots to do anything. Just goes to Torn again. Clicks Superpower instead of Focus Blast. But it's looking like a last Mon Gyara kind of situation. Of course, it's a Scarf Mienshao. It doesn't miss the Stone Edge. So, we've seen Roserade, we've seen Zapdos, and we've seen Mienshao. These are cool Mons. I'm very happy with this. I'm actually really enjoying this tier. Now, this is the only game of Week 1 that featured Hyper Offense. And I gotta watch this live. See, Arrow on Scarm, what do you think normally happens here? Well, Arrow goes Taunt, and then clicks Stealth Rock. And Skarmory is sad. Indeed. Except it's Mental Herb, he Stealth Rocks, goes to Scissor, it's a Balloon Scissor, and finds it on a second Taunt. Now Monet is significantly advantaged against a team that basically kills itself on rocks. Bullet Punch, of course, sashes the Aerodactyl, and just has to content themselves to trading rocks. But Monet doesn't really hate rocks on his team. Also, we see a Lucario. Now, it's probably going to try and spin, but they're jealous into Spin Block. Do they call it out with Thunderbolt? They do not. And, of course, that would have been a 2-hit KO. Also, like, look how many balloons are in this game. Like, that's 3 so far. If they'd called it out, they would be a 2-hit KO the Jellicent, but then something would likely come in to try and scare out the Mii. With Nightshade, though, it's in range of a lot of things. Jellicent can get sacked because you're not going to allow her to enter the field again. Tornadus outspeeds and HP electrics it? Grass? Grass. Grass for Gastrodon. And it drops. Scissor comes in. There is a potential Heat Wave. And it doesn't bullet punch the Tornadus into oblivion and dies to Heat Wave. It was likely an SD Scissor because of how hyper-offensive this team is. So Torn probably barely lived. Now, we know this isn't HP Ice Torn, so the Jolly Giant should be okay into it, but there's a Skarmory on the other side. You better have DDFP. The Fire Punch, no, it's Outrage, which is a crit. That is really big. And you don't die to Brave Bird. But doesn't Scissor just come in? Revenge kill? And it takes it out. Wow. And then the Volt Corona comes in, but like, you have Sash Slam, you have Bullet Punch Scissor, you have E-Speed Lucario, presuming E-Speed does not Bullet Punch there, of note. Probably maybe U-turned, but Zam comes in because there was no QD, and this is just over. This is just over. It isn't even Grass Knot too. We don't even get to see what the Lucario was doing. So that was your Kevin Oya recap. I hope you enjoyed. I don't know. I tried to make it quick. I was able to cover 4 games in 17 minutes. We take those. Enjoy the Kevin OU. I'll come back with more, with stuff from week 2 at some point, whenever they get around to playing their games.